What's up, folks? Let's talk about the build that has consumed the last 48 hours and more of my Path of Exile 2 play experience, and that is Gemling Legionnaire with Shockwave Totems. This has been probably the smoothest experience I've had so far in the early access, and now that we know that the patches for this coming week don't really change much, I figured it was about time I put out a video for this, just because this is something I can definitely recommend to almost anybody who's just looking for a nice, chill experience, and probably want something I would recommend to my friends who are kind of getting into it and want to play something a bit more safe. I am by no means a hardcore player, but I only have 2 actual deaths on this character. If I do slash deaths, I've got 4. 2 of those were because I went into T15 maps at level 70, and that was kind of not the right time for that. And then 2 of those are to mobs that are now being nerfed in the patch coming up this week. So this patch coming up doesn't seem to be touching anything on this build, so it's very safe for me to recommend, and that's kind of what I was waiting on before making this video. This has been pretty much just what I've been doing, which is farming rituals and then also doing bosses here or there. Citadel fights are pretty much a joke because they stay stun locked, and you have really good clear for rituals, so you're pretty safe in there as well once you get some of that chaos resist. And then, of course, for bigger fights, you do have the ability to still kind of die if you really mess up, but you have a lot of padding with having 5,000 plus life and a 1,600 energy shield in my case, with that regenerating back at about 1,000 a second. So you have a lot of wiggle room, a lot of mistakes can be made, and if you stack an omen in there, you might as well give yourself one of those. You heal up to full when you get too close to dying, and well, what do you know? It's cheap immortality. So definitely a build I can recommend if you're a little bit squeamish on the one portal thing. I may hate that as a mechanic as much as everybody else does, but for now this has been a way to get around that and make me feel pretty dang safe even when I'm essentially talking to Twitch chat and just looking at my other monitor like I usually do in PO 1. And of course, because we only get 1 button, it's pretty easy to play. You can of course add more, and we'll talk about that as we go through the frame, but let's get into how the build actually works. So we are level 93 on this Gemling Legionnaire, and if we do some slash played, we have actually gotten like a nice 2 days and 5 hours out of this bad boy with those 4 deaths that I was talking about. I'm not a hardcore player. I don't play watching my screen and worrying about dying, but the fact that I've only flopped over a couple times is pretty good news to me about the entire state of this build as a whole. And from there, we get to then look at the fact that we do have that 5,200 life right there with 1,600 energy shield, and because of the way that we've built, those both effectively work together. We don't have that recharge. We have Zealot's Oath, and we'll go over that in a second. Naturally, when standing around, we just have 825. Slap down a totem, we get 981 on there for the life regen, which feels really, really good, and that has a lot to do with the way that we did strength. Now you'll notice right away, one of the first things you're going to have to do when you're doing this build is you're going to go to your options, you're going to turn on dynamic culling, and you're going to have yourself a much better time. The reason you have to do that is because if you don't do it, and you put down 4 totems, yeah, you start kind of losing the ability to see what's going on, and if you really want to ramp it up, especially when you're leveling, because you're going to be using this thing right here, the Rimnor's Hymn, while leveling, because for some reason the slam skills you use yourself cause aftershocks still works for totems. This may not be the case at some point in time, but for now it does. So if you're going to slap one of those bad boys in there, and then you're really going to get those aftershocks going, you got those totems ramping, you're essentially just gonna lose sight of your screen, you know. So yeah, you're gonna definitely want to go in and just turn on that dynamic culling to kind of make it so you can see what's going on, but even then it's still kind of rough until it figures out, oh yeah, we need to remove all those rocks that we're spawning, because yeah, you get the idea. But yeah, so essentially, first thing you do is you're going to grab yourself a Rimnor's Hymn, because right now it still works, and then you're going to go right into the build. We went Gemling Legionnaire as our ascendancy. You could go the warrior ones, you could go Warbringer or Titan. I went this because it just seems to work a little bit better with the pitfalls of doing the build. One of them is the quality is very important, because that gives you base attack time going down, so it feels really good to get that in the build. The second thing is, for me, I went with less cost of skills. Now you can see I only have a level 38 gym here, only, you know. It's pretty high still, but a 38, and this is on a 19 level Shockwave Totem so I can get a +1 there, and I'll talk about how to get a higher one. That's a little bit later on in the video, but if you want to, you can also go for the +1 all. It just doesn't feel that necessary at this level of damage, because I did go a little bit more damage heavy, just because I felt like I was already tanky enough. So for that, I went with the less cost one, which helps quite a lot, because 1,000 mana cost is coming down to 662 life cost, because we are blood magic. And we also have to anoint, you know, deep trance for reduced cost of skills, just to kind of not make it so we use our entire HP pool every single time we cast. And then because we are Gemling Legionnaire and we are going to have to go some giant blood down here, then because of that strength requirement, we might as well use the node for inherent bonuses are doubled, so we get a lot more of that life that we need to get anyway from stacking strength, and that's where we get that big old life pool here. You can go much heavier into that. I didn't really do that because it just didn't feel that necessary. I felt pretty safe with the 7,000 combined that I have. If you want to go really hard into it, get a bunch more stuff going on, you're more than welcome to. It just wasn't necessary for me, and I've been playing pretty safely just with the setup I have right now. But if you want to get tankier, you of course can. The other thing that maybe was in consideration was infusion, but it seemed like this was just going to be a stronger approach than trying to get enough, you know, gyms and stuff going on to actually be able to use this. But maybe this is another option as well. For the leveling process, it's pretty simple. You honestly just start here, go straight down, grab yourself these nodes, grab yourself these nodes, and then if you have Hrimnor's Hymn and you want to get yourself another weapon that's like a +2, +3, you grab yourself Giant's Blood and start getting some strength where you need it, and then from there end up picking up some of these life regen nodes here, maybe here, wherever you want to go. And then from that, when you're starting to move up the tree, grab yourself blood magic, because at this point the cost of using the skill starts going up a little bit more, so it's a lot easier to do that by regeneration if you have enough like stats and stuff on your gear. And then from there, you're going to move up the tree and go for Zealot's Oath, if you can get your hands on it, Atziri's Disdain, and that's where we're going to go into with the gear. For me, I went ahead and chose Atziri's Disdain with the corruption for regeneration, because we do want that flat regeneration, or percent regeneration, because we have so much HP. It's a bit better than flat regeneration, and this is giving us that big ES pool, and because of the fact that we have the big ES pool along with Zealot's Oath, it means that we don't recharge, but when we are at full HP, we get that to be HP regen, and then it becomes ES regen when our HP regen HP fills up. I don't know why that was such a complicated way of saying that, but you get it. The regen helps both in this case, and we don't have to worry about getting recharge or staying out of combat. We're always going to be healing if our HP is topped up. So that's why we went Atziri's Disdain. The one thing you'll notice is, of course, this chest piece. Some of you looking at it going, wow, okay, is this build expensive? Not really. You don't have to go for a 5-second chest piece, and for the most part, everything combined on my build, I'd say has been about 25 divines. It has not been that expensive. You don't have to go for a 5-second chest piece. I just got this one for 10 because I was thinking I was going to maybe go a little bit heavier into the build, but it turns out I didn't really need to go that heavy into it, and it still does really well. So I ended up just sticking with this in the thing. Maybe get a 4-socket, whatever you have you. These are just all resistance in here, and then these are chaos resist in these, just to pad out the little bit of chaos resist I needed. So you can go for this, you can go for a much cheaper one, and it's still gonna be just as fine. You will probably want to run the chest over a rare, because as you can tell, it is quite a lot of my stuff. I forgot that I don't have enough dex to put it on when I take it off. Be right back. That is the problem with wearing gear that enables you to wear that gear. Sometimes you take it off by accident and realize, whoops, I shouldn't have done that, and you have to switch amulets. Anyway, so realistically, it is a big portion of what I'm getting, but it's not so detrimental that you can't use a 4-socket, but I wouldn't go rare just due to the fact that those attribute requirements allow you to get much cheaper weapons, and that's something we really want to talk about later on. So we're wearing the chest piece for that and getting that attribute, getting that strength, which then means we get more HP, and then we get that HP as a max life as well, so it's very powerful for that. For the rest of the stuff, unique-wise, we have Rizlatha's Coil. I ended up going a setup with Heft and Rizlatha's Coil because I went this node down here. For damage with hits is lucky against heavy stunned enemies. Due to the fact that we have a lot of stun from using Overwhelming Presence, we are able to get some really nice stuns. Most things stay stun locked the entire time, and because of our hits are so massive from the combo of Heft and Rizlathas, when we get lucky, when we get stunned, it feels really, really good, and you can see that HP bar moving down super quickly. A lot of this in here is just damage, so this is Brutality for more physical, Heft for more max physical, more attack speed. This I'm using Jagged Ground for. I don't know if this is necessarily good for the build. It does generate Jagged Ground, and the skill does slam Jagged Ground as well for about 1/5 of the damage of the entire skill itself. But if you can, you know, not use it and you feel like it's unnecessary, you can always take this one out. And for the last one, we have Overabundance. That just means we get that +1 limit, but they have shorter durations, but we get a little bit of duration here and there, and it feels just fine to still use them as a totem, so it hasn't really been a problem. 8 seconds is plenty, and most things will move out of the totem's range within 8 seconds anyway, and you're going to be placing them down a lot more often, because heavy stunning something will cause it to be knocked back, so you're going to be moving them around. It hasn't felt bad, and that +1 is still a very powerful link there. Vitality and Overwhelming Presence, and for me, I just have Blink as my last one. You could use Warbanner, you could use a couple other things in there. I have some Spirit on my amulet as it's implicit, and that's why it lets me put in Blink, just to blink around. I don't know if that's necessarily the best idea. Maybe Warbanner if you want more damage, maybe a Font of Rage on like a Solar Orb for getting yourself rage. If you want to upkeep that and like dance around inside the orb to keep your rage going, you could do that as well for more damage. I pretty much took the easiest and most lazy approach to this setup to just see if it works, and it works really well. Now, the big thing here that we have to talk about when it comes to the attributes and of course the Gemling is strength. Now, because we are going to go Giant's Blood, we need a lot of strength to wear two-handed weapons that have big rolls of +7s. This one can have stun buildup on it, because stun buildup actually does affect, at least from what I can see from the tooltip. If you go to the slam, you can see the main hand stun buildup 248. That is actually coming from that mace being in my main hand. It does affect that, and then this one can have stun duration on it if you want to go that way, not stun buildup. This one I just bought, it already had the runes in there for stun buildup, so just wanted some stun duration. Now the big thing here is, once again, that strength roll. If you're going to be looking for maces, there is kind of a breakpoint at this point that you need to be very aware of. So if we go into trade here and we search for a two-handed mace with 175 strength, which is what I have saved here just for the purposes of this video, you'll see that I've set this to 175. You'll see that we get about 300 or so matches and decent prices to begin with. You know, some of them start going into divines pretty quickly, but that's just kind of the reality of that. This, by the way, is better Path of Exile trading for Chrome if you're interested in what this extension is. So that's the price there. Now, if we were to go in here and say that we want a mace that is under 173 strength, you'll notice the price jumps up pretty drastically right away. We're going into 2 divines, almost double the price just from that little jump alone. The reason for that is that 175 or 174 is a natural roll without requiring reduced attribute requirements. So you're more likely to get rolls in this range, and as a result of that, you know, you just basically take 174 on a calculator and multiply that by 3, and you pretty much need 522 strength to get cheaper weapons. So getting to this breakpoint is actually kind of tricky depending on how you gear yourself, or depending on how you move on the tree. You can of course get more strength or more jewel sockets to get to that, but this is about where you want to get to if you want to have those cheaper weapons, more options for weapons overall. For me, that pretty much boiled down to trying to get strength on the pieces that I can, so where I can get strength, chaos resist, lightning resist, things of that nature. Most of my glove is just resist plus melee skill, so that was actually a really hard one to get strength on for me because I needed to get the rest of my resistances up and running anyway. Most of my rings, this one has strength, cold, and chaos. Once again, getting chaos resist was the difficult part with strength, but it's got a good life, good strength. It worked out. Pretty cheap still to get some of this gear. This one is carrying most of my resistances. This does not have strength on it. It's just resistances to try to get it. And of course, your choices with the amulets, depending on if you're going to go for a spirit one trying to fit in blink or something, you're going to be pretty limited there. I was able to pick up a nice one with life, bit of energy shield, plus 3 to melee skills, and those 2 resistances as well for fairly cheap. There wasn't a lot of people doing this kind of stuff at the time when I started this, so this one was pretty gettable. But you can also get strength on the weapons themselves if you want to go for that route, so that if you can get enough strength to wear one of them, you can get enough strength to wear the other one. And of course, any strength that you get on the build is going to compound pretty quickly. So if I were to take off my boots right now, I would go to 486 versus 525, and that's from the 27 strength I have on there. So the more you have, the more percents are helping you. That's really good for you and something to keep in mind. But like I said, try to keep the gear cheap if you can, because it doesn't have to be expensive. You can go really hard into it. You can get a lot of other stuff going, but the reality is that getting good cheap gear is possible if you get to certain breakpoints where the hammers are just cheaper. As a result, you'll notice I have 144 here, and then this one is a 159. So this was a breakpoint that I kind of got beyond before I even had this much strength, and these didn't cost that much. You just kind of have to keep an eye out on the market and see what is available. Now with the plus, of course, you are paying more and more of a life cost at the same time, so don't go too hard into the pluses right away unless you have the ability to pay that life cost as well. So for me, I've always kept the regen above what the life cost is. If you're willing to play a bit more riskier and stuff like that, you could of course slap on some +7s right away if you have the strength for that. If you have the resources, go ahead, but just be careful, be mindful of the fact that, you know, it is going to start costing a lot of life from you, and as a result of that, it's something you want to keep in mind. Now the second thing here is, like I said, this is a 19 gem. I could get a 20 gem in here, and that would give me +1, and I probably still will at some point. But the reality is I kind of just stuck with a 38 because I wanted to go for a 2120 gem. That's been really hard to get, because you have to essentially make a 6-link and then val it and hope it goes +1. I have failed 12 times in a row, so I've deleted 12 6-links. You can tell that gets really expensive very quickly. So instead of doing that, you're probably going to be going for one of the Prisms of Disbelief. This is a list that's on the PoDB thing, and I'll link it in the description. And you're going to scroll down here into this one where it says Shockwave Totem 1, 2, and 3. If you're in my position right now, instead of going for a 2120, which is a lot more expensive, what you're going to be doing is you're going to go for a 20, just a normal one, level this bad boy up, and then you're going to use one of your jewel sockets to grab yourself one that is the Shockwave Totem, so the market with 68.5. The problem is these are still going to be not in any kind of specific order, so you will have to scroll down, and depending on the time of day, depending on how many people are doing this kind of stuff, you can get them for different prices. So right now, about 7 divines for that last +1 if you want to pay for that and get that into the build. You don't have to do that. Like I said, I've been doing just fine on the 38 that I have currently, and it hasn't cost that much. But if you want to take the next step, if you really want to take this all the way home, push this up to 100k DPS pretty easily, then you're going to be looking at that. If you want to be even easier, it is a physical gym. You probably take that Jagged Ground, put in a +1 there, level this up as well. That gets you to 40 as well. And it's probably more powerful than Jagged Ground is being for me at the moment. So that could be another thing you take out of the build, just to give yourself that ease of getting to the +1 for as cheap as possible. Because realistically, you want to be cheap. You don't want to spend a lot of money on something that doesn't need to be spent on. Of course you can, but you don't have to. As far as the rest of my jewels are concerned, they're pretty basic as well. Life regen, totem damage, attack damage, totem placement speed. Nothing too fancy for those, and those are part of this one. So you can get these for a couple here that this is just in exalts. So these are totem damage, attack damage, totem damage, melee damage, and then some of them are different ones as well. Now of course exalt ones are going to be a little bit rare on the market, but if you need to have a bunch of them, of course 27 results, and you start going into the 1 divines, because most people just price anything they see that has 4 lines that may work together as 1 divine. So it of course is a little bit hard to get those, but there you can see totem damage, life regen, the big 2 that you need to be able to stack everywhere, and then attack, physical, totem placement speed, melee damage, totem life, skill effect, and I have area effect in there, but I'm just not using it. I thought it was unnecessary at this point. Because of the way that they work, there's no reason to really get area effect in this setup, so I just didn't bother with it. Most of my jewels, pretty much all of them are the same ratio. Some of them are totem life, some of them are totem damage. The totems have an absolute absurd amount of life, like 30,000 or something right now. If I summon one, you can see the totems itself has a stat of 32,000 life, so you really don't need totem life. They pretty much never die. They're going to live their 8 seconds, no problem at all, and then you're going to be able to put them down as you see fit. Beyond that, like I said, you can use a solar orb or something with a font of rage if you want to get rage into the build, as well as then using maybe something like Warbanner instead of blink, because if you don't want to go for the spirit, you don't need this setup in here. Warbanner at some time in the fight, you can put it down, do a lot of damage with it, and do that. Attrition does not work. It is counted as your damage. We tested it, so if you're thinking about that as an aura, turns out it doesn't work. It doesn't give you Culling Strike for the totems either. Some things are just weird. I don't know why the hammer works. Don't ask. I don't know. It's probably going to get fixed at some point, but it does. It's a really good leveling weapon for the build from there. And that's pretty much, honestly, the entire setup of the build. It has been pretty dang straightforward. Like I said, when you're leveling, you're just going to come down here, grab some totem nodes, grab two-hand if you want to go for that. If you have the helmet, you're going to start moving up here. Grab blood magic after you get some regen, and then from there, the rest of the tree is just filling out your strength, filling out some attack speed nodes like this, getting some stun build up once you start stunning, getting more regen, getting more strength, maybe getting some totem life and stuff, or totem resistances if you think you need them. I'm honestly probably dropping these points off if I don't really need them, but I also don't have really points to put into. That's why I have like a regen node over here for no reason. Resolute technique does work for the totems. Don't know why, it doesn't matter to me. It does, so I've used that as my accuracy fixer. If it doesn't work at the time of you playing this, get some accuracy on one of your pieces of gear and you should be okay, good to go. Or just take some of these nodes out and try to get some accuracy in that regard. Just depends how you want to do it. Maybe you're going to run precision in here and drop out this thing entirely. That could be another solution for that as well. And then from up here, just getting more strength, because we do get those passives from the strength along with the big jewels for the damage and the regen scaling from that. So realistically, beyond that, it's a very simple build. It builds itself pretty heavily, and then you're just going to pad out the stats you need to wear these two armor helmets and chest piece throughout the build, and that's it. That's all there really is to it. Now there is a variance of it as well. You could go Avatar Fire, do some elemental, because the elemental damage with attacks does work from the weapons, so you can get some really big weapons there if you want to scale that up and maybe use some curses and stuff of that nature. I don't use any curses in this because vulnerability is kind of a bad thing right now. Anyway, it doesn't really do much when you're hitting this hard with melee damage, or physical damage I should say, so I don't really bother with it, but you can go that approach as well. Hopefully that covers pretty much everything about the build. It has been straightforward, it has been really easy, and it's really fun to play. And like I said, for someone who doesn't play hardcore, to have almost no deaths on a build is pretty good, because all I'm doing is just chilling, playing the game with it. So hopefully check it out, hopefully enjoy the build, and yeah, let's see what the week of content brings for the new patch and see how things feel, and hopefully it helps Ritual a lot, because oh boy, the last 4 days of ritualing has been it has been quite thin, let's just put it that way. Anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the build. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below, I'll get to them. Peace.